So what's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk about how I exorcised my reading demons with the Yonsei Korean reading series. So first, let's talk about the purpose of using a graded reader. So in my opinion, I think reading itself, especially in a foreign language, is a skill that you have to train, even if you don't understand the language in the first place. Because there's a lot of cases, where people are completely illiterate, right? Completely illiterate, but they speak the language and they can listen to the language much better than any non-native speaker of the language. And so, in the same way where if you want to teach someone to swim, you're not gonna throw them off a boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and tell them to just swim, right? You have to slowly acclimatize. So if you want to learn to swim, you start at the shallow end of the pool and you work your way right to deeper waters. And so in the same way, that's what a graded reader is for. So you start with not so complex material, more simple material, and you can slowly acclimatize your brain to the language, right? And slowly, once you push the difficulty, you're pushing the stimulus for your brain, and it will slowly the skill of reading will be acquired over time. And so that's why when I pick up a graded reader, my mindset going to it is, okay, I'm not here to learn vocab, because I'll learn that in the long term. I'm not here to acquire grammar, because that'll also happen through grammar study. So my main purpose is to train my brain to learn how to read, and that's all. So I recommend that when you're going into a graded reader, you should go in it with the mindset of, okay, I'm here to learn to read. Basically, I'm here to learn to read. So in the case that you have unknown vocab, unknown grammar, you'll be more relaxed. You won't be so gung-ho about unknown words, and you'll be able to work your way up slowly. And so why do we pick the Yonsei readers over other graded readers? Well, because it's it's very widely available online, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. And also because it's been used a lot by people in the Korean immersion community, right? So you can compare your notes, you can compare your progress with other people, which I think is quite fun to do. And so now we know why. So let's talk about how. So in the case of the Yonsei readers, I recommend using what's known as intensive reading, right? So as compared to extensive reading, where you're going through a lot of material, just to try to acquire the language naturally. With intensive reading, you're really working with the text, right? So especially with these graded readers, you want to take your time, and you want to really work with the text. Massage it with your brain. You want to go through it line by line, word by word. You want to you want to be able to notice things. You want to train your brain to say, okay, this is the subject, this is the verb, this is an adverb, this grammar point, this vocab. You want to be able to notice things, right? So you don't actually have to know what it means, but you want to know where things lie, and you want to know how the written text is shown, right? So you want to know, you want to be able to get used to how written Korean looks like, right? And so you want to really take your time with it. So don't be too stressed, in terms of the time. So there will be a lot of unknown vocab and grammar, especially if you're a beginner. But in my opinion, I think that a lot of the fun of learning to read is recognizing stuff through context, right? So, and especially since the Yonsei readers have a title and have a picture, right? So you can kind of guess, what stuff will be about. And so, but if you really cannot get it through context, and the particular vocab or grammar point is like really, 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 really important, then I recommend you look it up. But the thing is, you don't want to look up as much as possible, right? For two reasons. So the first one is that, okay, if you keep looking stuff up, if every time you come across something unknown you look it up, then you're going to get into the habit and to the mindset of where, okay, I have to look everything up, right? But the problem is that once you get to native level material, there will be a lot more unknown words, especially with a lot of more complex subject matter or very unfamiliar subject matter. There'll be a lot of unknown vocab. So you'll just be you won't be reading, you'll be looking stuff up, right? And that's not reading. And also, if you keep looking everything up, it will eventually lead to burnout because you're not actually reading, right? So because it's not fun, right? And so you'll lead to burnout, and it breaks up the flow of reading. So it won't be fun, basically, and so you're unlikely to continue. And the whole point is to get into the habit of reading, right? And so when you're reading, as I mentioned earlier, the vocab isn't that important. So unless it's like an I+1 sentence, so if it's an I+1 sentence, just throw it into Anki for your sentence mining. But if it's not, don't worry about it, because in the long term, you'll acquire it if it's important. And if it's not important, like if it's so unimportant that it only appears once in the Yonsei reader, then it's probably not that important anyways. It's probably not that important anyways, right? Because if it only appears there. And so one huge tip I can, which I think I should have implemented, which a big mistake I didn't do when I first started reading, was taking breaks between articles, right? Because in your native language, you don't really need to take breaks between reading, right? Because you're so used to it. People don't realize that you've spent so long learning to read that they forget that it's actually a mentally taxing skill, especially for beginners, right? So I recommend taking 1 to 2 minutes breaks, 1 to 2 minute break between each article, but just don't take too long where you lose the energy of reading in a sense. But you don't want to be too short where you don't take a break, right? So just watch like a 1 or 2 minute video. I mean, it's also active immersion anyways, right? So you have to take that break, or else when you have longer subject material, it would be quite frustrating to read. So what was my daily schedule like? So because reading is a skill, it's more important to do something every day than doing a lot of it, right? So you can either read for if you had to read for once a week, 7 hours at a time, or 7 times a week, 1 hour at a time. The higher frequency option is better for skill acquisition, right? That's I don't know, it's like some psychology, you can search it up, but basically it's more important to do something every day than it is to do a lot of it once a week, in terms of skill acquisition, right? So I definitely recommend reading every day. Even if it's just 10 minutes a day, it's better than not reading at all. So you have to do it every single day, right? And so for 1 to 2, I recommend a pace of about 2 to 3 articles a day is good. So that'll take about 20-30 minutes a day, which isn't that much time anyways. You can read, if you're reading 3, you can read 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and 1 in the evening. And then once you move on to 3 and 4, 1 to 2 a day is decent, especially for the longer articles. So that'll take about 45 to 60 minutes a day, if you're actually working with the material. And so some people say you can read 5, but personally, I didn't, right? So I was confident enough after I read 4, like, okay, I have the confidence to move on to native level material anyways. And you don't have to reread the graded readers because in a more natural context, people don't usually reread stuff anyways, right? And so if you're rereading stuff, then you're kind of like what's to say, you're not experiencing the experience of seeing stuff for the first time, right? Which is what reading's about, right? And so after the graded readers, what can you do? So you can move on to other graded readers. So anything other than the non-Yonsei series is also okay. But if you're like me, I really wanted to try to get into native content. Then I moved on to web novels. So I will say that web novels are a big step up from the Yonsei readers, but they're definitely much more interesting. So yep, I think I should end my video with the Korean way. So I should say, 여러분 구독과 좋아요, 알림 설정까지 눌러주세요.